Joe Limon, welcome back. Let's do this.
Hey, Clyde.
So
Let's do this.
we had a cancellation today, so it's just me and you. It's just me and you today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the stuff that's been going on lately.
All
I
right.
had a cold this week, and that sucked. So for anybody listening, I'm gonna do my best to mute anytime I have to or anything like that. I'll keep that I'll keep that at bay, and for your ears as well, Joe. Sorry, but yeah.
And for some reason that cold or whatever you have seemed to hop the next province over. I too have been suffering from congestion and random sneezes.
I think everyone's got it. So Rod Giltaka, he was supposed to be coming on today. We're gonna have him on in a few more weeks. Apparently, there's a big safety committee going on, and he wants to go over stuff that's gonna be happening in that. So it'll be better to have him on afterwards. So we'll reschedule that one for that. But apparently he had the coof. He got the COVID. I guess, I don't know. Does anyone really test for it anymore? You just get sick and you just say, I got the COVID, man. I got it. I need those monoclonal antibodies. Give me that horse paste. Get it in me. Get me, make me better. Make me better. But anyway, I didn't have anything. I just had some chicken soup. I have the worst craving when I get sick. I want to have awful chicken soup, not awesome homemade stuff. I want to have your Campbell's can. I'll settle for Tim Hortons. It's a little better.
Just nuked a little in the microwave.
Just no, I like it piping hot, but it's just got to have that that artificial flavor. I don't know. It's comfort food for me. It's not about the wellness. It's I'm sick. I'm in the house. My wife's got daytime television on. It sucks. Why am I here? Yeah, fluids. Give me fluids and salt and stuff. Whatever is gonna make me better. Anyway, so that was the beginning of my week, and that it killed my sleep schedule. It made it hard for me to fall asleep last night. So everything's kind of all over the place. I'm pretty delirious, and been trying to follow news and stuff as it's been happening. But you were showing me some stuff. What's happening in Turkey?
Yeah. So Turkey, the last decade or so, has apparently people were really pumped and excited about globalization hitting Turkey, and their economy was growing massively. And then it just fell apart. They have massive amounts of inflation. In the last year, I believe they have 80% inflation rate.
Whoa.
You think it's bad here.
And those are the official numbers.
Reported.
Yeah, the official
reported
numbers.
6%. Yeah, no, 80%. So I got interested a bit. I watched some videos. I asked around about it. But apparently the other thing that's really driving this is the leader of Turkey. He's Muslim, and they really, really look down on interest rates and profiting off of loans.
Oh, I've heard about this. Are they proper Sharia law in Turkey? I didn't know that was.
I'm not sure if it's full or anything, but that is his religious background.
Yeah,
and because of it,
they outlaw usury in in Islamic states, which makes it really difficult for economic growth when you can't borrow at a surplus.
Yeah. So what's happening though is their interest rate, despite inflation being 80% reported, is their interest rate's 8%. So,
but that's still usury under their law. So how does he square that circle?
That's the compromise he's made of sorts.
He's it's usury, but it's just the
think about
the right amount of usury.
Let's say that you borrowed $100,000, right?
Yeah.
At 8% after a year, you now owe $108,000 minus whatever you've made in payments, right?
Yeah.
But with 80% inflation, it's now like 60,000 or whatever of foreign currency to pay that off.
Yeah, well, there's no incentive to lend, is what
No,
you're
you
saying.
want the longest loan with the lowest interest rates that you can get, and it's gross. If I had my house 10 years ago done through a Turkish bank somehow, some way, I would have had it paid off 3 to 4 times over by now, just with the amount of inflation that they've had, and just putting my monthly payments in Canadian into that bank. So
Oh,
apparently,
brutal.
this also ties into a lot of his financial backers are people in the real estate industry.
Okay.
Hyperinflating cost of living there, buying up properties with all of these cheap loans that they're getting, and it's just circling and building up on each other.
Oh, this is
It's a
brutal.
it's a it's a brutal debt cycle.
I've got an article here. Where are we here? This is Al Jazeera, by the way. As Turkey's economic crisis grows, politicians spar over refugees. As tensions rise over Turkey's millions of refugees, politicians are seeking to capitalize on resentment. Oh, okay, this is more of a political thing. Turkey's inflation rate soars to almost 70%. Turkey's military operation causes controversy. Division in Iraq. Why Iraq? Ukrainian. Okay, it's just all kind of all over the place. This article.
Yeah, there's a lot of news coming out of there. They had a big earthquake there as well.
That can't help anything. Absolutely.
No.
And
well, I mean,
what do you think about that? Because
helping...
like, okay, so I'm normally a pretty like laissez-faire kind of guy. Like I like the idea of the regulations being tamped back, but
yeah,
I mean, you look at some of the building structures that were there during this earthquake, and rest all those people's souls, and I hope everybody that was injured has a full recovery and all that. Really sad what happened there, but like I couldn't help but think that wasn't put together right for these buildings to be falling over like that. Like, so a little context, right? In 2011, I lived in Tokyo, and that was when the big one popped off in.
Well, do you remember what it was?
It was a
what scale?
9 point something.
Okay, that's like orders of magnitude.
Not in that was magnitude, but not in Tokyo. That was off the coast of Miyagi, where it was that big. I think it was like 7 magnitude, somewhere around there in Tokyo. But it was But it was over a minute long. Like it was really, really intense. And like, a lot of people say, well, you didn't live in Japan your whole life, so you don't know. No, like everyone I know was like, this is probably the most intense one I've ever experienced. It was incredible, but nothing fell over, like nothing.
Yeah, that's a good example, because I'm looking up here. The Turkey earthquake was 7.8 at its epicenter.
7.8.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's very comparable size-wise.
Yeah, that would be quite comparable.
Having nothing falling over versus
now there is differences
Eastern European
between ones that go up
principles.
And down, like earthquakes that go up and down and side to side.
Shear versus compaction.
Oh, okay, that's what they call it. Okay, I didn't know that, but
well, that's my engineering term.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, like everyone that I know who knows building codes in Japan, they'll always mention the up and down versus side, shear versus what, compaction, and they'll say one's more dangerous than the other, but not knowing which was which. Again, nothing fell over. In fact, excuse me, I only heard about one reported death in the whole Tokyo region. Pardon me. And that was a person who was at a building. He was at like this big warehouse facility, and he was leaning over a guardrail when it popped off. Like just an unfortunate guy. So
I heard about that as well.
Yeah, but everybody else.
That's unfortunate for that guy, but not nearly as unfortunate as the building code in Turkey. The Eastern European technology is not what it's cracked up to be.
Well, that's what I couldn't believe when I was watching the footage of that. And so that's why I was getting into like the, building code stuff. That was the first thing that crossed my mind was like, well, thank God for building codes that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Excuse me, having a coughing fit. I just got to get that out of me. I just had to get that out of me. I've still been working on this.
Yeah.
Still been working on it. I got to make sure it's completely out of me before we go to Japan because they're not having any of that. They're not allowing for it.
You'll be wearing masks the entire time.
No. So, well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when
I thought it was you wear masks when you're sick there.
That's what it's always been. So if you're like, if you got stuff coming out of you, like people put on a mask for, seriously, like when you're really getting sick, like, and people don't take time off work in Japan. It's just not something people do. You don't get a lot of people going like, I'm just not feeling 100% boss. No, they power through a lot. It's part of the culture. I mean, it's like the whole. The what is the phrase, the nail that sticks out of the floorboard gets beaten down. I'm not joking. That's or hammered down.
There's no translation for sickie. I'm taking a sickie.
Yeah, no. There's nothing for that. But I mean, like, obviously if you're really crooked, like you can have the time off, but most people, they just power through. But so yeah, they'll wear a mask during those times. And then there's also this unfortunate thing after the war, I believe it was, they wanted to foster like industries, so they cut down like a lot of forests and planted cedar trees, like red cedars.
Oh no!
Like coniferous trees all over the place, thinking, oh, this will be a great industry for this little island nation, right? They all grew, but nobody got into logging. So there's just like all these like quite old growth cedars all over Japan. And there's a whole season where the pollen just like flies through the whole nation, and it's everywhere. Like it's everywhere. There's like everything gets coated in this yellow dust, and they call it kafunsho, which is like hay fever season.
Okay.
And it's bad. Like it's real bad. There's a whole like market, a good market for the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to like hay fever reduction stuff, like Benadryl or what's that, antihistamine, that stuff.
Well, on the plus side, at least they didn't import the eucalyptus trees.
Why? I don't get the reference.
Oh, they keep lighting it on fire.
What?
Oh, let me look this up.
Oh, is that just like in like desert areas or something? I heard about that. I think I heard about it in California. Anyway, I was getting to the mask thing. So people wear masks because of that season.
There, send you a link.
Oh, okay. I'll pop that up. But the whole point is that they have it for the masks for that. So like a lot of people, they'll take photographs or they go to Japan in a certain time of year. They're like, oh my God, there are germaphobes everywhere here. It's like, no, the hay fever is like that bad that people will actually just wear dust masks. I mean, they look like surgical masks or whatever. Yeah, just keep the pollen out of their face. Because it gets really bad. But let's have a look at this. How eucalyptus trees stoke wildfires. Eucalyptus are now cosmopolitan spread around the world through imperialism and globalization. What? It sounds like some communist thing.
Yeah.
News reports about wildfires in California. Currently battling its largest fire ever, and Portugal, which has been battling huge fires in recent years, highlighted dangers posed by eucalyptus trees. But why? when they're nearly all eucalyptus are native to Australia and neighboring islands. I know the drop bears like them. That's what I hear about. Fire certainly wasn't on their minds when those who spread eucalyptus around the world. As geographer Robin Dottie. Anyway, give me the short and sweet about it. What's going on with these? Is it
drop bears the koalas?
Yeah, drop bears are cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, give me the short and sweet. Why are these things blowing up? Do they actually combust? And
they're I believe they just have really a high oil content to them, and yeah, the dry climate, and they're like kindling. In Australia, a lot of the California wildfires that they've been having are due to these trees.
Really?
I like the I like the mild segue here on the koalas though that eat this eucalyptus. Do you know what the smooth brained is?
I do. I've heard that. So a lot of people say smooth brain because they're dumb. They don't have any wrinkles in their brain, and that's apparently like the wrinkles signify like how well the brain works. I'm not sure the chemistry of it.
Yeah, it's the biology. Basically, the folds mean that more distant parts of the brain can connect to each other and increase transmission speed.
Oh, okay.
And being smooth, it just has more meat to go through for the signal. But here I got an image to show the audience. Nice smooth koala brain. The for how dumb that it makes these koalas though. If you locked a koala in a room filled with eucalyptus leaves, they would starve to death.
Oh, I think I've heard this. I heard. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
And like they've evolved specifically to understand that these leaves on sticks and how to eat them by tearing them off of the sticks, and that's how they consume them. But they aren't. There's not enough neural activity there to figure out that if the leaf is already off, they can eat it. so when somebody's calling you smooth brain, it's a pretty sizable insult.
That's pretty bad. But yeah, I heard that when they eat the eucalyptus, it ferments in their guts and it turns into alcohol, and then they get drunk on it.
Just what they need, impairment.
So they're smooth brains and they're impaired. So they're just, and apparently that's why they call them drop bears, because they just fall out of the trees. Now there's a whole other legend that, and I'm probably ruining the joke for a lot of Australians out there, but they have like the legend of the drop bear, and like they'll scare visitors that come to Australia about it and be like, drop bears, watch out for drop bears, they'll get you. And then like tourists are freaking out all over the place about these drop bears that don't actually exist. I mean, they're just koalas. they're dumb, and they're not very vicious apparently, even though the legend might tell you that.
That's good.
But that is a thing. So yeah, Turkey, unfortunately, 70%. We're veering all over the place tonight, but
but yeah, Turkey, that article's 70. Other ones that are newer that include the, let's see if I can find my 80%.
Well, you were showing me this video on, and I didn't have time to watch it today because there was so much going on earlier today, but this is the Turkey's collapse is far worse than you think. Hyperinflation bankrupt. That's from Business Basics.
Yeah.
So what do you think this is something that's going to spread further? Like that's insane. Okay. Yeah. It's above 80%. It's showing there on that graph.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of really wealthy people that take out a lot of really expensive loans in Turkey just for personal gain.
Big loans so that
Big loans, buy a bunch of property, have it all compound, inflate on itself. And it almost feels like a pyramid scheme of sorts. And when it crashes, I don't know how it crashes because it's the entire currency.
Well, yeah,
Like,
currency collapses. It's not the first time that's happened. We saw it happen in
yeah,
Zimbabwe all those years ago. Well, not so long ago. I mean, I think it was just in the early 2000s. Zimbabwe,
yeah,
they decided they were going to monetize their debt, right? So they owed a bunch of money, and some political
yep,
stuff fell through for them. So they're like, okay, well, we'll just pay off our debt with new issued currency, which is inflating, right? And next thing
yep.
you know, like you can find out there $1 trillion Zimbabwe banknotes, and they're cheap.
Yeah.
Like you can
They're rare. They're in circulation, and I think you can pick them off eBay for like $20.
right. There's like people hang them on their walls and stuff. Like, hey, look how much money.
They're not worth $20, but
no.
But because they were rare enough that
Yeah, you'll never get $20 worth of stuff out of it. But yeah, so hyperinflation happened back in the was it Weimar Germany? That was like the first real situation that we ever saw that, and that was largely due to the war and the debt that they had left after the war. After the First World War, Germany was told to pay back the debt that they incurred on everybody else on the war. And so they decided to, again, just like Zimbabwe, monetize that debt. So they just printed it away.
Yeah. It's crazy, and then they're just finding more and more creative ways to do it now.
Well, doesn't
prolong it out.
Doesn't it sound very familiar with what's going on here? I mean, we have a tremendous amount of debt, and we have interest rates just about to rise. And we had Trudeau saying, No. That was, I remember him saying that, like, just like that too. No. I think I have the clip here. I'll find it. But being asked about, well, how are you going to service this debt if you have to pay it back, right?
It's like, no, the interest rates are low right now.
Oh, I'm just going to pull this up because I have the clip right here.
Regardless of what that figure is exactly, future governments are going to have to carry that debt. The servicing costs on that are going to be very high.
Sorry?
The servicing costs on the debt that you're going to have to carry, that you're adding to now, right?
Interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn.
Okay, but it's still a lot of money.
No.
It's still a lot of money.
No.
And you don't know where. Okay, but how are?
No. They're at historic lows, Glenn. And we just borrow all the money we want. We don't need to think about it. We don't have to think about what we're gonna do when it comes down to it. I love this moment right after too. This is the creepy little guy that is our prime minister. He does this thing where he shifts back into his like pre-made. It's like cracking open a TV dinner. You know what I mean? You're like, this isn't gonna be good, but it's the ritual of peeling back the thing. You know, it's they'll eat it up, but it ain't gonna be good. And he just does it. Watch it happen.
How are you gonna pay for that? How are you going to pay for those costs in
he's
future
preparing.
years? Are you going to increase taxes, or are you going to cut programs? Okay.
Right now, we're in an absolutely unprecedented situation where
that was the TV
our
dinner
economy
rolling
had to
back
completely shut down. And the government chose to and needed to be there for people while they lost their paychecks, while they could not be comfortable in how they were going to be able to support their families, pay their rent, pay for their groceries.
He just wanted an excuse to spend all our money. It was insane. Insane. It's historic lows, Glenn. Historic low interest rates, Glenn. Like as if that will always be the case. And, we got to pay this stuff back at some point. So what are we going to do? We're going to monetize our debt? We're going to just... Well, we can't do that with higher interest rates, can we?
It almost feels like the plan was they're going to raise the inflation rate to such an extent that it'll be easier for our grandchildren to pay off our debt, because by that time it'll be worthless compared to how much tax revenue all that inflation will bring in.
But it just that destroys everybody's savings. It destroys everybody's pension, everybody's everything.
Yeah, it's like when Freeland was claiming that they were looking into ways to get at people's savings accounts. It's almost like the way to get access to people's savings accounts in Canada is to inflate the dollar.
Yeah, well, that is direct access.
And it's like it's 100% effective. There's no dodging those tax loopholes or anything. It's anybody who has value. It just goes down the shitter. Yeah, unless it's inflating with it everything in the price of property in that bubble or whatever else you have.
It's not like we had really high savings rates in the country anyway, though. I mean, I remember they were calling it stagflation, right? And that's the idea where we have an inflationary environment with low savings rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The average net savings is under 10 grand in 2021.
That's
and
crazy.
That's not including all the debt the average person has.
Well, all the debt, and then on top of it, the government
that would
liabilities.
Negative off of all of that.
All the unfunded liabilities that everybody has to pay for down the road.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen when the baby boomers all finally retire? And because so many of them are have not fully retired, right?
Yeah. Total gross debt owed per capita 76,000. Oh, that's a terrible ratio we got there.
We're doing better than the U.S. Actually, I was looking up the numbers yesterday. It was 94,000 per person in the U.S.
And those are American dollars. That's like $3 Canadian. But
when they broke it down to how much taxpayers have to pay back, not just every person, like every taxpayer.
Yeah.
It was more like I forget the number. I think it was like 150,000 or something like that.
Okay.
It was way up there.
Japan's also really way up there.
Yeah, Japan's way up there. I think it's their national debt's at like 12
is that private debt or is
trillion.
That government debt?
Their national debt?
Yeah, their national debt. It's not the people that hold that debt. It's the state.
It's the state that holds that debt.
Yeah. Is it just they were trying to keep their economy going, or do you know anything about that?
So from what I understand, I'd love to learn more and maybe even bring on an expert to talk about what's going on there, because I'm actually quite interested. But what I understood was after the 90s crash in Japan, they decided to go on a let's keep interest rates as low as possible to like slow down the inevitable burn of the crash, right?
Yes.
Hey, does that sound familiar?
The demographic collapse.
No, not even the demographic collapse. No, the 90s came with, the 90s came with a big boom, like the 80s, the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then at the end of it, it all crashed. Like it all crashed.
They had a housing crash, did they not?
They had a housing, they had industry crash, a bunch of stuff crashed.
Yeah.
And like it was amazing times. Like here on the West Coast, you hear all kinds of stories in Canada of just Japanese business people coming over with fistfuls of cash for everything, right? And that's just the way it was. And then it crashed. Now, when it crashed, the government there, they decided we're just going to keep the interest rates super low to stave off the brunt hit of the crash, right? But all it does is it kick the can down the road, and they're still kicking the can down the road. So they've never had a full recovery, even though they have such a great work ethic, they have great companies, they have great stuff going on in Japan. Despite all of that, they haven't had a full recovery yet because of the near zero interest rates for 2-3 decades. It's crazy. It's insane how long it's been. And I mean, the same thing happened here. To stave off a crash, they dropped the interest rates super low. Oh wait.
Yeah, it seems to be a very repeating cycle. The Dirty 30s had that sort of thing where, in order to preserve and help people, the government will increase spending in public services. And yeah, that made the Dirty 30s stretch out far longer than it could have.
It was gross.
Previous crashes.
It was gross. You think the dairy lobby is disgusting now? And I think they are. I think the dairy lobby is gross, and my YouTube channel is probably going to be terminated now for saying that. This is the mafia. No joke. But during it was FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his New Deal, that was the Great Depression. Like there was a crash, but there was like 2 crashes prior to it. And
that were, if I remember, they were the dollar swing was higher on the previous crashes.
Yeah.
But it was such a short time before the recovery because they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
That nobody remembers about them anymore.
No, nobody remembers about them. But here's the thing: the industries that went through the boom bust, they were liquidated, right?
Yeah.
So like the actors that malinvested lost everything, but everybody else did okay in those crashes, right? But the difference was FDR stepped in and he put in all kinds of measures to prolong the inevitable, right? And it put off a recession, turned it into a Great Depression. They ordered farmers to plow over crops.
Yep.
And their purpose behind that, their thought process was, well, if we plow over the crops, it'll limit the supply, which will drive demand up. The demand was already there, but it'll bring the prices up so that the farmers can do better because of price increases. That doesn't help the people who are starving and can't afford the food. You know, what would help is if all that food went to the people that were starving, so that they would have the energy to get busy on capital building again. I mean, this is the whole concept of how a market economy works. You want to build new things, not destroy things. They called it the broken window fallacy. Have you ever heard of that?
Maybe, but go ahead.
So it's this concept that if somebody comes along and smashes a window, that actually does a service to the economy in that local area. Right?
Yes.
And the idea behind that is, well, you know, the owner of the building has to replace the window, so he has to call the window glass guy who does the installations. The glass guy has to call the manufacturer that makes the glass, and then there's this whole chain of things that happen if somebody breaks a window. The reason why it's a fallacy is because those resources would have went to something else. They would have absolutely gone to something else.
Grows value.
They don't just end up in a Scrooge McDuck bin where somebody's swimming in it. Like, that's not how money and economies work. Your money goes into a savings. Even if you wanted to hoard it and save it, it goes out and it gets invested into other things. This is how it works, right? So if all we're doing is going around and breaking windows, well, that's the only economic growth. Well, we're not getting any growth. We're actually it's a net negative at the end of the day.
We're investing in glass repairing technology.
Right? But yeah, that was...
Thanks, Antifa.
But that was the... Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Those guys, it's job creation every time those guys go out. And...
I think I've actually heard some people use that line of thinking.
Really?
To justify all those riots that they had in the States. Yeah.
Wow, that's a net negative.
It's like, yeah, the insurance will pay for it. It'll help grow the economy. It's actually a good thing that they're destroying all these small businesses.
You gotta love it when communists come out with a capitalistic argument for why their horrible behavior is just.
Yeah. Oh.
Doesn't fit. Just like their t-shirts, that it just doesn't fit. You know, at your entrepreneurial stand selling Che Guevara t-shirts. That's a grift. I kind of appreciate that grift. It's funny.
Yeah, selling communist manifestos at events.
Just the entrepreneurial spirit of it is it cracks me up.
I'm so proud of all those Marxists. The amount of cognitive dissonance that you have to have.
And then when somebody comes up and like steals something, they're like, "Call the police! That guy stole my property."
Yeah, it's weird. You don't see them leaving these countries. I had a gross thought the other day.
Oh,
about these commies and stuff, and I was thinking about their phrase that they like to go off of, the from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. And I was like, when you step aside from the financial aspects and implications of that, do these people, who are many which have colorful hair, they're gross, overweight, not very aesthetic looking people, are they hoping for like state sponsored prostitution where you round up the most attractive handful of people and then have them going out and collectivizing the means of reproduction?
I don't know what the
And
end
I'm like,
game is.
that'd be like, I could see these people giving up their ability to reproduce by finding common cum dumpsters that are more attractive than they could get.
That's one way of putting it.
And like, ending up with a gross sort of eugenics sort of scenario where they all weed themselves out of the gene pool.
See, I don't think any of these people actually take the ideology.
I don't think
seriously.
they think that far into it.
Yeah, I don't think they think that far into it. So like,
but I think if they did, I think they would go, I would definitely go for state-sponsored prostitution. I think a lot of them would, because like on the personal basis, it means that they're going to hook up with people outside of their sexual market value.
That's mean. That's really mean. So it's kind of like the opposite of the incel Elliot Rodger type that feels entitled.
Yeah.
So they.
And I know,
I mean, it's not even the opposite. It's just another version of what you're describing.
And I know there's been a number of French philosophers and stuff, all those French Marxist philosophers who have directly advocated for this sort of thing. But I don't hold it past them for thinking that's a great idea.
I think most of these kids that get into postmodernism, Marxism, they don't see it to the end. Like, what does the end result look like? Like, what does the end game look like to them?
Yeah.
Like, when all said and done, and your average person is has to comply with this thing that you have going on, does everybody turn into a purple hair like them? Do they think that that's where it's gonna go? Everyone will just
it's the utopia.
I didn't see the ways of how beautiful life would be if I just had a big old nose ring and behaved like a complete child in public. Like,
yeah,
do they
mummy government?
I don't think they thought this through. I don't think they think it through.
Well,
to the point where it's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, things need to be made and work needs to be accomplished.
Yeah.
And somebody has to do that. So somebody has to turn the gears and so, somebody has to till the fields I know the more modern look and view at this stuff is of like the Klaus Schwab sort of persuasion. I actually liken it to, I don't know if you ever heard of the guy, Peter Joseph. Have you ever heard of him?
No, the name doesn't ring a bell.
He was a guy who he reckoned himself an intellectual. I saw him do a bunch of debates back in the day when he had like a series called Zeitgeist when YouTube was pretty new, and they went viral.
Okay.
And it was basically he followed kind of the atheist movement, and then let's break away from all of the things that have brought our society to what it is now, and it's like a kind of neo-Marxism. They called it the resource-based economy.
Yeah. Okay.
It was before the Great Reset and all this stuff, right? It was this idea, and a lot of the people that got involved in it, there were like dorky types into Star Trek and stuff. And I'm not ripping on dorky types. I mean, I'm quite a dorky type in many ways myself, but
yeah.
But
they wanted their replicators.
Okay, you're jumping the gun here, right? So
okay, go ahead.
There's this whole concept that we could have a resource-based society where it's just about the resources. It's not about any of these other things, like as if everybody will just share. I mean, it's still the same old concept. But the idea is, well, no, but AIs will be, they'll be all powerful, all knowing things, and they'll take care of us, right? They'll be our mommies, right? Essentially.
Okay. Clearly, Clyde, you haven't heard. They have these asteroids in outer space. Well, they're just floated with gold and platinum, right? Now, all they need to do is like grab one of them, bring it down to Earth, and redistribute it, and we'll all be millionaires.
Right? Yeah, because as soon as we all have gold, we're all rich. Instead of gold becoming worthless, is exactly what would happen. So, this is the funniest thing. Is like, they don't get the very easy principles of economics. But here's the funny part: is like even some of the most diehard fans of like Star Trek, for example, that do understand the principles of economics will say, well, that'll be all fine. It would work if we had a replicator. And as you got to it, right? So resources are always going to be finite, and there's always going to be infinite human demand, right? Like demands are infinite. Like our wants are infinite. Even if we were satiated with the things that we want, we'll find new things to want. It's just it's our nature. We just always find new things to want, and those things require resources, and we have to get those things, and that's work, and that's labor, and you can define labor however you want. I mean, it could be labor of love. People do artistic things if we're less toiling in the fields and stuff. But there's always going to be miners. There's always going to be people doing these jobs. It's not going to be this utopia that they believe. Anyway, they push this idea, and well, it would make sense if we had a magical device that did all the things that can't be done by the laws of thermodynamics. And it's a convenient story plot or whatever, a thing for a fiction.
Well, even if such a technology came to fruition, in that scenario, you still have hierarchies of value because some things can't be produced, like coastline property.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like you'll still have people who own massive houses in amazing places, and there's just too many people to divvy that all up.
Yeah.
We'll all have our little tiny box on the side of the ocean.
Well, you're gonna have
side by side.
You'll have your devil's advocates that are what about? I'll give you the devil's advocate. So like, what about virtual reality? We're gonna be living in the metaverse. You can have all the coastlines you want.
Oh yeah. That's a very bright future there. I could definitely see somebody feeling their infrared heater blasting heat at them as they think they're sitting in the beach.
So this kind of goes into something I wanted to talk about, and that's the idea of UBI. So universal basic income. Like we've had so many people suggesting this stuff in the past few years. Like even Joe Rogan, a guy I respect a lot, and I think he's great, but I think he's totally wrong on this one. Like just give people money. It's the whole like once we have all that gold, we'll just give it to everybody, and everybody's a millionaire. And maybe some people have reeled that back, and like they're not. And I'm not thinking Joe's a dummy, right? But
no, there's a lot of really smart people that get stuck on the idea.
Yeah, and here's a clip that I saw today, and I just wanted to get your reaction on it because it's just like, it sounds good at first, but no, it doesn't.
On a basic level, what does universal basic income mean?
So the idea would be that a government, in this case our government, would give everybody the equivalent of a Social Security payment. So you would just get $500 or $1,000 a month maybe, just for living and breathing and being in the United States.
So you would just get paid to just be?
Yes.
That's it?
That's it. It's a very, very simple revolutionary idea.
Right, okay, so simple idea, complex in execution.
Yes.
Because as soon as you say universal basic income, immediately people jump to communism, socialism.
Right.
You are going to give people money, then your first question is, why would people bother working?
Right, so the idea is...
I gotta give him credit. That was at least a good steelman argument. Like you don't hear that from Trevor Noah that often, so I'll absolutely give him credit for steelmanning that
props
argument.
There.
Yeah, props.
That it wouldn't be enough money to stop people from working. So if you had $500 a month from the government, it's very unlikely that you would quit working. We have actually a lot of studies that have shown that even with more money than $500 a month, people don't stop working. And the people who do stop working, there's not that many of them, tend to be the parents of young children.
Right.
They tend to be young folks who are staying in school for longer. And then they tend to be older folks who perhaps retire or take it easy a little bit earlier.
So you have...
Or Mimas with guns.
Fuck, man. She sold me. I'm sold. Okay.
You're sold.
So here,
there's more to it, but like hit your point now. Yeah.
Keep going.
No. Hit your point. I want you to hit that point, and then we'll keep going.
She's right. Like, it wouldn't stop people from working. They would have to work harder because everything would inflate. They would be able to afford less, and people would probably have to work even more than they do now.
Okay, so
she's right.
To that point, I want to
for the wrong reasons. But
to that point, I'll nail this. So, yeah, she's right. When people they get assistance, they don't stop working. What they do is they'll work under the table so that they don't have, you know what I mean? So they don't have to declare the work that they're doing, and they'll still receive their assistance.
The UBI doesn't do that. It's not welfare.
No, but I'm saying when people, I mean, how else is she comparing it to people who get free money?
Think the UBI is, even if you're a millionaire, you get paid. That's the core.
No, I get it, but she's saying from studies, from things that have been established. So the only things that you get established that from is current assistance that's given out to people. So,
well, they've done pilot programs for UBI in countries all over the world.
Okay. I'll concede that one then. That's for sure. Yeah. But you're right, because what happens is it just instead of setting the bar higher so everybody can, it just knocks out a couple of rungs. So you're getting nowhere without that basic amount of income. And this is where it can get dangerous, especially when it comes to digital ID and telling people that they have to comply with things. Because now, without that basic amount to start with, the amount that you make at any other given venture is not enough to keep you afloat. So
like these people have a very solid grasp on the idea that if I have more money, I can afford more. But what they lack in comprehension is, if I produce less value, there will be less value for the world to consume. Mm-hmm. And if there's less value that the world's being produced and put out into the world, then there's less that I'll be able to get regardless of how much money I get.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, and the idea that the more of this money is out there, the less value people put to it, because it's just a certain amount of it is just being created. Or I mean, and then it comes into the question like, well, if everybody gets a little bit, then all the people who are making more will have to be taxed more in order to contribute to that, or you're just inflating the currency.
Yeah. Do you want to finish that video?
I do.
Or do you want to keep...
Yeah, let's look at the rest.
Groups of people who may be using universal basic income to improve their lives, to raise children, to earn an education. In the title, you say how a universal basic income would end poverty, revolutionize work, and remake the world. Why revolutionizing work?
So the idea is that if there were a future in which a lot of jobs started to be replaced with AI and automation,
here we go.
How would a lot of people support themselves? It's a really pressing question. It's one that people...
She went right from the argument of this isn't going to be what people are going to support themselves on, to AI's coming, so they're going to support themselves on this, right? Like, it's amazing how you just flip a switch and you forget the last thing you just said. Keep going.
People are really worried about. Yeah. And the idea is that the government would kind of have to step in to help keep people's heads above water in that kind of circumstance. But there's also an argument for doing something like this now. So if you had $1,000 a month to fall back on, you might not take a job with poverty wages. You might ask an employer to actually improve working conditions.
Right.
So it could be really good for workers. And we've seen just a remarkable reduction in the power of the labor force versus their employers.
All right, what do you have?
She has a point.
Oh,
she has a point again. So over the lockdowns and stuff, a lot of people started working from home and quiet quitting with all the money that they were handing out and stuff.
Yeah.
And that did force employers to compete against the state for those resources. Mm-hmm. So she's right in that by giving people money, it will force the employers to pay their people more. But it's not like an employer will go, oh, I've made 20% profit, but in order to stay competitive, I'm going to have to cut into that profit margin and pay my employees more. No, they just increase the cost of goods and services.
Yeah.
They pad that extra wages into the products that they sell.
So
they maintain the profit margins, and it's weird where so many of these people, they go and jump to the conclusion that that extra money specifically comes out of the pockets of the wealthy people who own those companies. And there's no reason why they would do that.
No, that's never how it goes. It's always the end consumer that ends up paying the brunt of the cost of all of that stuff. So like, here's a real simple example. I mean, fast food restaurants. When the pandemic hit, people started getting paid CERB and all these other things, right? So people had less of an incentive to go into these lines of work, or they dropped out because of their fear of going back to work. But then they got paid and they're like, I'm comfortable, I'm just staying on this, right? So what did that do? The slave wages, or whatever you want to call it, like people like to throw those terms out. I mean, entry-level positions aren't supposed to be for adults with families and stuff, and it's unfortunate when people end up in that position, but the whole point is you're supposed to work your way up out of that. Like, that's really the point. But nonetheless, here in my town, there was like all the fast food places. I think it was like Wendy's, a bunch of places. They had signs up, $19 an hour to start.
Yeah.
$19 an hour to start, and they couldn't fill those positions. So it's not the argument that they had like slave wages is what keeps people out of these jobs. If that was, no, they still abstained. Like, what number would be good for an entry-level position? And then at what point does the franchisee that sells burgers to you have to raise the price of a $3 burger to be an $8 burger. And then, you know, I mean, this all ends up back at the,
see that already,
right? It all ends up back at the consumer level, and then the price of everything goes up, and then you're all just poorer off for it. You know, like it doesn't really help anything. And then, you know, it really upsets things when skilled workers like mechanics, engineers, and all these people, their wages don't really go anywhere. And then all the entry level position wages are getting so much closer to that position of having to go to university for 4 years and study and do all this stuff. So it disincentivizes even doing that stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And then what do we have? We have a brain drain on top of all of the things. It's just it's not good all around when you start looking at the scenarios that could play out because of just giving away free money.
I had a conversation with a guy this week. He's working at Costco, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just finally passed his 5-year mark, and he's making $29 an hour.
What?
And he gets a biannual bonus of about $3,200 each time. And it's steady, it's stable work. He doesn't have to worry about fluctuations like he used to, because he used to be a rig worker. He used to make more on the rigs, but it was seasonal.
Yeah.
So, like, and that's the thing now. He told me that he was in contact with his previous employers, and right now he could go work some of the rigs and make more than he's doing right now, but
how much did you say? $39 an hour? $29. So $30 an hour.
It's still incredible, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's high school education.
That's
employment.
Costco pushing around a pump cart.
That's exactly what I caught him doing. Right. He's returning the carts.
Oh, returning! I was giving him more credit. Pushing around a pump cart, like a pump jack, pallet jack cart.
No. He was out in the parking lot, freezing his bum off, pushing carts
for $30 an hour, $29 an hour, and
$29 an hour plus $3,200 twice a year,
$6,400 bonuses.
Bonus.
That's crazy.
That's freaking incredible. But
I'm sure he's got benefits and all that other stuff that comes along with it.
And that's the thing, though. It's like, that's good for him, but that's coming off of the cost of everything that people purchase there.
Yeah.
And the time and effort that he puts into that as a skilled person who was working the rigs, he's not actively providing as much value for the economy.
No, he's not. And well, not only that, there's some high school kid that's not pushing carts.
Yeah, he's taking the position of some high school kid.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was in my teens.
Yep.
I went and I pushed carts.
Yep.
I worked at a superstore at Walmart.
Me too.
Oh, did you?
Superstore. Yeah, I was in the dairy section.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was a superstore. They didn't have a grocery thing.
Okay.
It was. It might have been before the superstores. I'm that old, but I pushed buggies, and it was it was like I wanted to get a job during the holidays, and they're like, okay, well, what can you do? It was like, you name it. I'm great at everything. Okay, push those. All right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll do anything. I just want a job. Okay, you are dairy. You're going to be stocking ice cream, working in a cooler all winter at midnight every night.
Oh, ouch! Brutal. Yeah, I just did
a job.
I just did the buggies. I did the buggies and carryouts for people who wanted to get their stuff out to their trucks. Yeah. Walmart was a trip working at one of those places.
It's pretty low stress employment though. The people that you work beside aren't the highest ability people, so just putting out average amounts of work makes you a rock star.
Yeah, I suppose. I always wanted to do something else with my time. I ended up, getting out of there. I went and worked at a tire shop, and then, you know, learned how to pull wrenches and all that stuff. And, you know, here I am. I'm a mechanic. A lot of years later, and a lot of industries through. So I didn't just stick to the automotive thing forever. It was a whole mess of things, including like a whole 3-year stint of doing work in Asia as being a bartender in Japan was crazy. That was something.
That's pretty cool.
We can get into that.
Did you have any experience prior to that, or
as a bartender?
Yeah.
No.
Or just on the job training? That's cool.
Well, and I dork out on things. Like if I get into something, I'll really get into it. So I'm like, I'm gonna learn how to make like martinis and all these like fancy drinks. And it wasn't even required of me really, but I was like, I'm gonna do it anyhow. And I learned a lot. And yeah, I found being a bartender, the most important thing is interpersonal skills, like to be able to communicate with people. That's really the biggest thing you're doing at that job.
Yes, for sure. Segueing a bit, I had an interesting, different conversation this week too.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to find a couple of communists that I was able to discuss thoughts with without them regressing to slurs and slander and stuff.
Okay, that's a challenge. That's in real life, like real people in real life.
Online.
Okay.
Online. So not in real life. So it's
that's actually even harder because
magical unicorn of
because it's so easy for people to just turn vitriolic on you for no reason on the internet.
And it was really interesting talking with them because I'm like, okay. Communism hasn't worked. It hasn't worked.
So they
tried it.
They were saying times. Communism's the thing to go. They weren't like socialists. They weren't.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let's go with your ideal. Imagine a system of communism that actually did work. Can you explain to me what it looks like and how people function and stuff?
And what they give you?
And they're like, oh yeah, North Korea.
No.
They did.
No.
They want to live in North Korea.
They want to.
They do. That's their goal.
That is so misinformed. That is so misinformed.
I mean, North Korea is not even real communism. Like, the fuck? It's North Korea is more totalitarian than they are communist.
That is the inevitability of communism. The whole idea of communism is everybody who's tried it, they haven't destroyed their society because they weren't faithful to the doctrines of communism. They destroyed their societies for exactly the reason that they were faithful to the doctrine of their ideas. And North Korea is actually the best example of them unrelentlessly being faithful to that doctrine. And you can see it from satellites in space at night. The difference.
The black void.
No joke. You have North and South Korea who are relatively the same exact culture prior to the war, right? You can more or less say, oh, well, you know, there's differences between the North and South. You know, that's like saying North Dakota is like a completely different place than South Dakota. You know what I mean? Like you could
for people watching. I sent you a picture.
Oh, okay. Here's the image. This is just unbelievable, and I put it on my wrong screen. Let me just pop it up here. Because it's there's no denying this. So South Korea, of course, is down here, and then North Korea is that entire thing that looks like a sea between mainland China and this is a whole peninsula that goes down. It's all connected. The land is there, and all you can see is Pyongyang. That's the only light in it. It's crazy, man. Like it's really crazy, and like it's really sad. Like I really feel so sad for people that went through that and lived there and still are living there. Like defectors have it so good compared to the people that are still stuck there. and we should be listening to them. We should be holding them up and telling their stories, giving them a voice, to share all of that. Because what was her name?
Yeonmi Park.
Yeonmi Park. Yeah. So she's been on. I've watched a few podcasts with her, and
she's terrific.
Very terrific. But the just hell she's been through, like absolute.
Oh, her story's gut-wrenching.
You know what her crime was? Her
was it
her distant relative was a landowner.
Oh, yeah.
Before communism took over. So she had a bloodline of someone who had owned, and it was probably just like a little plot of land, like a farm.
Yep.
Like it's absolutely gut-wrenching what's going on there. And to think like,
and it's really gross because the one thing that she harps on with her message is it was the complacency of the people accepting it for the way that it was that allowed it to be what it was. And that complacencies and the story of the complacency of the people in North Korea really unnerves me when it comes to places like Canada or Australia or New Zealand and how complacent we've become.
That's
dark.
That is dark. But that gets me right into something I wanted to talk about, and this is what Joe Rogan was saying on his podcast just the other day. And I think this really nails home what you just said, essentially.
Rogan experience.
Did you see the fucking article today? There was a thing on the CBC.
By the way, sorry about the swears to everybody who's watching. I normally keep the swears to a minimum, but Joe lets her loose, and sometimes really lets her loose. So
hey,
I
said one this podcast.
All right, fair enough. But whatever. It is what it is.
And it was talking about the word freedom, and that the word freedom is being used many times by far-right activists. Freedom. Here, I'll send it to you, Jamie, because this is so fucking... Canada is so fucking wild right now. It's such a like really crazy place. Here it is. Why the word freedom is such a useful rallying cry for protesters. The word has become common amongst far-right groups. So by putting that far right in there, far right.
Joe, you know we're far right, you and I? We're fairly far right. Like, I mean, I don't even consider myself that right. Like, I when it comes to economic issues, I definitely think I'm right of center because
you're like most Canadians. Most Canadians aren't even liberals. They're economic conservatives and social liberals.
Okay, so when it comes to what people want to do,
the vast majority of Canadians will agree with those statements.
Oh, okay, fair enough. If you want to do whatever you want with your personal life and your love life, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my territory in your life, but my big qualm with the government right now is blowing all our cash, and I would like to see that not happen. And not only that, they're limiting people's personal liberties. Like the old we can get into that later, but I don't like what they're doing to religious people, even though I'm not a religious person. I think those people should have a right to that too. It's tyranny of the majority, you know what I mean? If you're not picking on one group, you're picking on another kind of thing. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Divide and conquer politics.
But there's no indication whatsoever that those truckers in Canada were far right. A lot of those are working class people that just did not like the idea that they were being forced to do this medical procedure in order to keep their job. And so they label them as far right.
Yeah.
Trudeau personally labeled them as racists and misogynists. just so he could disparage them.
Yeah.
Just so like whatever they say doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So this is what they're doing here with the term freedom, which is like one of the most basic tenets for human rights. Your liberty as a human being, your ability to express yourself, your ability to talk about things, to protest, to do what you want.
That's what
freedom
I mean.
is so fucking important.
Inherent in the idea of a free country is the right to protest.
Right.
They go hand in hand. That's why that headline is beyond parody.
But it's actually something that's being pushed on the CBC, which is really crazy.
Well, it's
Because
sinister.
like they're setting you up for this idea that you requesting freedom, it's like it puts you in the category of anti-vaxxers or racists or far-right people. It's just these weird ways that mainstream media has fallen into labeling people in order to pass an agenda and pass this to put this narrative out there. But the fact that they're willing to do it with something that is so important, like freedom.
Like protesting.
Yeah.
Protesting is fundamental to freedom. So to say that using the word freedom is something that protesters use, you're basically, this is like
But not just
China
protesters,
stuff.
far right because you can have
Far-right
far left
protesters.
protesters, and
protesters.
that's not being talked about. Like freedom is very fucking
They
important.
don't want freedom.
So for far left protesters, they don't want freedom. But yeah, so there's this concept that the far right are using, anyone who uses the term, because I mean, that's what they're labeling it, right? Anybody who uses the term freedom is far right.
Yep.
That's
But Clyde, Trudeau supports protests. He just doesn't want them to be trying to manipulate the government.
right. Yeah. Didn't he say that in the inquiry? It's like, I'm fine with protests. I
Yeah.
think they're great. But if you're trying to affect change in policy, you can't do that in Canada.
No.
Well, then
No.
what is the point? Oh my.
Jesus.
So that
You complain all you want, but don't expect me to listen.
well, the same thing happens in China, you know. The same
Yeah.
thing happens in China. They'll allow
Yeah.
people. They'll rile people up to be angry at things, right? They'll allow people to have their protests against the Japanese, and that's a huge thing. Where like there's been no conflict with the Japanese since the Second World War, right? Between the Chinese and Japanese, but they'll drum up animosity against the Japanese, keep that going, so that there's an other to hate, right?
Yes.
And as long as you can have that other to hate, it's like, yeah, protest that all you want. But if it's like living conditions, COVID lockdowns, anything like that, done, not happening.
Yeah.
Not happening at all. Do you know what happened to the protests? Oh, go ahead.
Whenever it comes to media trying to rile me up on anything, I've become so jaded at this point now that whenever I see that, my initial gut reaction now is to view that as a form of distraction, a form of government psyoping the people to hate the new thing. And I'm sure at some point it's going to put me at odds to people who deserve my support. And it's probably happened to some degree, but
What do you mean by that?
the
Like
whole
what?
politicking, like the Ukraine thing, like I hate the fact that we're involved in it down to the core.
Right.
But at the same time, I acknowledge that there are people on both sides that are suffering because of it.
Yeah,
There are
I
people
feel bad
in
for
Russia
Ukrainian
suffering.
people for sure.
And,
Yeah.
and like there's a lot to be concerned about these people. Would I give $1 to any of them? Probably not. I have a very hard time giving money to any charities, but that's my own personal thing.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, when it comes to these foreign causes for any of them, our government needs to stick out of it. And if they are, the one idea that I've really latched on to is the idea that the government will just match donations.
I
So
like
that
that.
way,
You told me that when Trudeau, was it after the Hurricane Fiona,
yeah,
in the Maritimes? Because I was pissed when Trudeau
yeah,
said that. After, well,
yeah.
and the context is that after all the money we gave to the Ukraine, billions and billions and billions, unsolicited.
After some of the money, they still gave more since, but yeah.
Okay, so after a lot of the money that they, all that stuff that they gave them in tanks and our entire defense apparatus, and just here you go, take it all,
Yeah.
take it all, and then Fiona happens, and then Justin Trudeau gets up in front of all the Canadian people and says, "We're feeling for these people, and we would love to help. And in order to help, we would love you to reach in your own pockets and donate to these people. And anything that you donate, we will match your donations."
Yeah. The contrast makes it so gross, but
I was
that's one of the
so
few
mad.
things.
I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, wait a second. How much taxes I've been paying in my fuel for climate catastrophe, and how much taxes in my heating bills, and how many new taxes and all these taxes that we pay. That's some of the money that should have went towards that. Straight up. Like the whole social safety net, the whole concept here is that we have this like quasi socialist democracy so that we can have these resources when these people need it. And when they need it in our own country, the Prime Minister of Canada steps up and says, "Hey, would everybody just dig into your own pockets? I know I caused the greatest inflation that this country's ever seen. We have the biggest debt that this country's ever seen. All of these issues that could have been avoided. And I know we just put you in lockdown and you have to pay back your CERB money because, you know, we decided that
on at the time.
It was all going on at the time." And he's like, "Reach it deep into your pockets, Canadians, and help out your fellow countrymen over in the maritime provinces." I was so mad at that. I was so infuriated by that. But you made a lot of sense by saying, that's a great standard. We should go forward with that for all foreign aid. Okay, I'm on board with that.
Yep. Yeah. This is the one thing that Trudeau did that I'll compliment. I'll clap for.
If that was implemented for all foreign aid.
And I like my mind reading of him on the subject is he's like, well, this really doesn't push donating money towards this cause, doesn't really push any of my goals, but if I tie it to people's paychecks and get other people to do it, if they donate lots, I'll donate lots, and then I'll look good because I'll be on the side of all these people. And if they don't donate much, then I won't donate much, and the story instead will be about how all of these people throughout Canada don't care about the eastern provinces, and then all of a sudden the heat's not on him, it's on Canadians in general. Like, that's my mind reading of his situation. But
it's so gross because it's not even his money. He was holding taxpayers' money for a refuge, like a relief fund for Canadian citizens hostage for poor Canadians to dish out their own cash. They'd already dished out in taxes, which is just insane to me. That is absolutely insane. But yeah, I get the concept if it was for the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like, donate to the Ukraine. You're all about it. You got the flag in your bio. You got all the stuff. Okay, I get you. Cool.
Yeah.
It's the cause that you want to support. All behind you supporting that with your money. And if the Canadian government decides that they want to, match those donations, well, there's a number of people that are all about that cause. Okay.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of the Dev Short Fat Otaku video where he outlines why socialists hate charity.
Oh, okay. For those who don't know, he's a fellow YouTuber.
Yeah, fellow
th-
Canadian YouTuber.
yeah, that's right. And his channel's called Short
yeah.
Fat Otaku. Otaku
Yeah.
means like nerd in Japanese.
Yeah. And yeah, he does a mixture of content. Lots of he finds himself as a very centrist, middle of the road individual.
Yeah, he
And,
seems that way. He seems pretty centrist.
And yeah, and he's reasonable, down to earth, willing to talk to people on things, and it's cool to listen to. But one of the his videos was specifically talking about socialists and their despise of charity. Basically, in simplest terms, when it comes to giving to charity, they view that as a transaction to make yourself feel good. And socialists don't like the idea that you could buy yourself that feeling. Instead, pay your taxes and let the government do it for you. And it's more, to them, it's more genuine somehow.
Then socialists should be against carbon credits.
Carbon credits are,
they make you feel
voluntary.
better about having used carbon-based fuels or whatever. They make you feel better about your carbon footprint. They should be against
that's
it.
That's specifically what it is, right?
It is.
Most of the sin taxes you could lump into that category.
Absolutely.
Feel good about smoking that pack of cigarettes because you know what?
You earned it.
Supporting the healthcare industry.
You earned it. You
earned that lung transplant.
Yeah, that's a transactional thing. You've made your transaction. It's a transaction with an extorting government, but it is a transaction nonetheless. But carbon credits,
it was also free and voluntary.
Well, carbon credits are based on indulgences. Changed my mind about that. I mean, I think the whole skeevy scheme came from the idea of indulgences that the church had back in the 15th century that Martin Luther railed against. The whole idea of like, everybody sins, but we're super good. Like, we're the clergy. We're super duper good. We got these extra double plus good points. So you can, we could sell those to you and you could, it was a transactional thing. It totally was.
There's some truth to it. Like, I've heard a study where they were looking at kids who were going to church on Sundays versus kids that didn't. And they found that the kids that weren't forced into going to church. Generally speaking, they were statistically more likely to be empathic and giving and to the other kids around them, and generally being better people. And what they marked it up as is the kids that were forced to go through and do the whole church thing against their wills, they felt like they've already paid the price to become a good person, and they were entitled to not share and be of that sort of empathic sort of persona.
Now, when you specify someone who is forced, is this like after they've asserted that they didn't want to go, even though like their family's all going?
Well, yeah, like there's a lot of kids that go to church, not because they're excited to go hear the sermons of the day, but because their parents are into it, and then they begrudgingly tag along because their parents bring them.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just asking if they separated the difference between, their parents go and they're excited to go, or
no. This is just general statistics on society as a whole.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
so
eventually,
kids who just they went because that was the tradition and their parents went.
Yeah, and it wasn't a hard, fast rule. It was just a statistic that they were able to observe over a large enough group of people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Yeah, the whole idea that I've already done something good, I don't need to do another thing good.
Well, I can see that concept that people would have
Yeah.
that. Well, you've all heard the stories, of people that go to church every Sunday, but then they go cheat on their wives and they go and robbing
Yeah.
people. And I mean, just because you go to church doesn't make you a good person. I think there's a lot more to it than that, obviously.
Yeah. And that's not to say that people that don't go to church don't cheat on their wives.
No,
Because there's a lot of that
there's
too.
a lot of that too. There's bad people that don't go to church. There's bad people that do go to church. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting that there was actually like a delineation between that. Like there was actually a statistical.
And I think it was interesting because they specifically targeted children in it. Because I think when it comes to demographics, the people that go to church in their older years, they do so voluntarily.
Right. So there could be a fallout of those people that.
Yeah, and I don't think the same sort of pattern would have been seen in an older population, specifically for the fact that it's involuntary for those kids.
So I went to church as a kid. Like my parents, they attended church, and then when I got older and still living in the house, they're like, "Well, you got to go to church, but you don't have to go to the same church if you don't want." So I later in life I confessed to my parents, "Oh yeah, you remember you sent me to church? I'd go to that one. I'd walk in the door and then out the other side, and I was gone. And then I'd just go mess around for a couple hours until my parents came and picked me up. And I always thought it was funny because I always thought, there's this one church in Windsor, Ontario, that to this day probably just wonders, like, there's a patch of time where that kid, there's just every Sunday, he'd get dropped off. He'd walk right in, right out the other side, right past all these people. What was with that? If you were ever part of that church and you were wondering, that was me. Yeah, that was why. And it wasn't even my neighborhood. It was like a strange neighborhood to me. So I just I go to the 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and play some like games with my quarters. That's funny.
So here's a deeper thought on that. There's a lot of things in life that are challenging, and we can grow off of those challenges, but depending, we can also get harmed. But it's the voluntary taking on those challenges that I think where the most amount of personal growth is. Like if you get cancer and you have the ability to go multiple ways on it. You can fight, and I suppose at that point it becomes a voluntary taking on of the fight against cancer.
Yeah.
But if you just give up and kind of miraculously end up on the healed because of our healthcare systems or whatever, the chemo actually worked for you, you're probably going to come out of that situation not as a stronger individual, but instead in a more negative light, where you go, yeah, I just had a really bad string of luck and life sucks, and just a completely different mindset when it's non-voluntary. So like the whole idea of struggle, you need to find a way to make it so how you're interacting with the struggle is on your terms and it's voluntary. Otherwise, if life just happens to you, then I think a lot of those people end up in a very negative place.
That hits deep. That hits deep because I mean, we can all be all of those people some of the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'd like to say that largely the success of my YouTube channel has to do with me just going, okay, I'm grabbing the bull by the horns and I'm going to do this every single day. I'm not giving up. Like, I'm just passionate about this thing, and I'm just going to do it whether I don't want to get up in the morning and do it or not. I'm just going to power through, make it happen, and do it.
Yeah.
And
imagine if it was involuntary. Imagine if someone had their gun to your head every day. It's like, you're going to do this.
I'd probably hate it.
You would hate it.
I'd hate it. Yeah.
So much. It's the same work, but you
could probably, see a similarity to it in people who, they get a stroke of luck, and it's just like, whoa, everything takes off and it's so great for them. But it wasn't like they were really trying at a thing, and it just happened to be a thing, right? You hear about this with lottery winners all the time. Yes. Struck a luck, and they're like, whoa, and then they're broken in worse condition like in a year, like way worse shape.
Yeah.
Because
easy come, easy go.
Easy come, easy go, right? But like easy coming, pretty gnarly on the way out. Like, like I've heard some horrible stories of like lottery winners that at the end of it were like, I wish I just never won it,
Yeah.
And that's a reality. That's a real thing. And pardon me, I've seen it on YouTube where some people instant success, but then it goes away because it was just like right place, right time. I'm killing myself here.
While you're coughing.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, for the people that do successfully grow off of a lottery winning, I can't help but think that before they won the lottery, that they were in a position where they were actively struggling and making like growth towards trying to become independent before it happened, rather than just being hapless victims of their own economic situations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I look...
there's a lot of people that are not wealthy, but they still do what they can to put things away and make sure they don't get into debt, and they're following all the right patterns and rules and doing all the right things. They just haven't had that stroke of opportunity. I won't say luck, but opportunity to help them really thrive.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because like I want to say that opportunities around every corner and you can just have it, but it is and it isn't, because you have to have foresight to see where things are going to go and how things are going to be. Like like with my career, I mean, I had a lot of ups and downs. I had a lot of dips and curves, and I've been screwed over in some circumstances as a professional in the trades, and that's a reality, and people go through that. But, and I'm not gonna lie, I've dwelled on that for some time.
Yeah,
like I had an employer screw me over at one point, so bad, like so bad. My wife and I was working at this place. My wife and I, we'd been married for some time, and we'd said it that we weren't going to have kids until we were ready. And I was like going through like an apprenticeship program or something like that, where I knew there was going to be a future in it. And I was working at this place, and well, I kept bugging, I want to get my ticket. I got to get my ticket. I think this is the most important thing for me in my future, yada, yada. I don't want to end up as some guy where if I ever have to leave or whatever happens, I don't have any credentials to take with me. And I still believe that having credentials means a lot. It means a lot for anybody, whether it's a university degree or a college education, something, right?
It's a door.
It's a door. And it tells people, like, nobody knows your experience, and your reputation will get you a long way. But having those credentials will get you in a place where, even if you don't know anybody, like say you had to leave town for whatever reason, these things all happen in people's lives, right? So I'm like, no, I'm staying firm on this. I'm gonna make sure I get my apprenticeship. And the guy kept asking me, or I kept bugging and bugging and bugging. And he says to me, yeah, I'll get you. I'm going to sign you up. We're going to get you through the Industry Training Authority. We're going to get all the paperwork done. We're going to get you going. Okay. But I want to make sure that, you know, it's happening. And he, even to the point where at a Christmas party, we were at a Christmas party and he singled me out, me and my wife out in front of everybody. And he's like, so when are you two having kids? And I said, well, I've told you before, not until I have that apprenticeship lined up and we're going with it. Right. So the next day back at work, he pulls me aside and he's like, we're setting you up with that. We're going for it. We're going to get you going.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember that discussion you had and all that. So, you know, me and the wife were like, let's have some kids then. Let's go. And yeah, my wife got pregnant. Yeah, green light. And we were stoked. We were excited. And we got the ball rolling. Anyway, we're well into that pregnancy and still nothing moved. And I'm like, hey man, like, we got to get this going or I'm going to have to figure something else out because what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what he says to me? He says, you know, the only kind of guy in this industry that wants to get a ticket is like a gypsy, the kind of guy who's going to go from job to job. You know what you're doing here. You don't need to get your ticket. You're good. You're good just where you're at. I'm happy with you here where you're at.
That's so dirty.
So he did me like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not taking that sitting down. So I put my resume out. And I started talking to different places. I'm like, I'm getting out of this joint. And
yeah.
So
I'll show you, Gypsy.
So you gypsy, I'm out. Yeah. Well, no, it's my goal was to get my ticket. You can't just take people's goals away and expect them to be happy employees of yours, right?
Yes.
Like your dreams in life, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a hard decision to make. Like, put my resume out when I'm just about to have a kid, right? And then we had our kid, and a week later, I come back to work, and I was like on my first day back. Or first or some day back. And at the end of the day, he calls me into the office. He's like, we're letting you go. You're out of here. Not only that, signed my paperwork that I was let go with cause, so I couldn't get unemployment.
Oof. Oh, man. Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I ended up fighting for it, and I won that battle with unemployment because they saw the situation. They're like, no, there was no cause. There was no cause there.
Yeah, there's no written up paperwork, no paper trail.
Nothing. I never ever got in trouble in that company, and then just that, right? So I know what it's like to be like royally screwed right over.
Yeah,
like that sucked a lot. And my wife was like, we'll take the unemployment and we'll have some time as a family and we'll enjoy that. And that left me bitter for a while, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I bet.
That left me quite bitter for a good amount of time. But you can't hold on to that.
No.
At a point, you gotta let it go. You gotta let it go because it'll eat you. It'll eat your soul. It'll just eat every ounce of you. You'll be so bitter and jaded everywhere you go, and it won't help. It won't help. You're not.
No.
It'll actually make things worse for you altogether.
Yes. You'll manifest these feelings into your everyday life.
Yeah.
Like I know there's a lot of hippy dippy psychiatry or whatever on manifesting the world around you with your thoughts and beliefs and goals. Trump was a big advocate for that kind of school of thought.
The hippy dippy stuff?
What was the person that he used to go to church with was one of those motivational people. Anyway, but yeah, he strongly believes in the more that you focus on a goal and achieving a goal and making every part of your life trying to work towards that goal, the more likely it will come to fruition. And that's where he accredits his success to. I mean, granted, his dad was rich and he had a name behind him, but there's a lot of people with money and names behind them that end up fucking broken in the street.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's very true. That's very true. But yeah, I mean, it sounds it sounds sound to me. Like if I go based on all of my experience through life, and I try to sum it up to what were some of the best things that worked out for you, and look at where my motivations were. Yeah, they were definitely the things that I saw through, that I was like, I want that and I'm gonna get it, and I'm not stopping until I get it, and always like eyes on the prize. I'm going for that. That's what I want. And it's such a motivator. It will drive you, it'll keep you going towards a thing.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't work for everything. I was, if I wanted a 6-pack, it'd be hard to motivate myself to have a 6-pack. But like, I got the keg, I got the dad bod, and I'm rocking that. I'm gonna try to get into better health, but like, everybody has their own unique goals and things that they're going for, obviously.
The when it comes on this topic to finding success, there's a couple thoughts that I'd like to share. The first is the Scott Adams principle of skill stacks. Have you heard of that?
No. I've heard a lot of stuff from Scott Adams lately.
I think you'll like his skill stacks idea.
Does he stack the skill of like how to say you're wrong but yet blame everybody else at the same time?
No. It's more positive and in nature.
If you don't know what I'm getting at on this, it's because of what he recently said about being wrong about the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And he said it was a coin flip, and anybody else who got it right was basically just flipping a coin too. So let's just it's a wash, because nobody came at it with any skill or no, of course
no. So the positive thing that he's written about in a number of his books is the idea that you should do as many projects as you can in order to grow a stack of different skills. They don't have to be related. For example, you and me talking on this podcast, that's a certain set of presenting skills.
Yeah.
That even if it's unsuccessful, hopefully it becomes very successful. But even if it isn't,
it's fun. It's a skill set. I really enjoy it.
It's a skill set that should we choose to in the future, we may be able to apply it to something else in our life.
Yeah.
And
nothing's a waste.
Nothing's a waste. You become a more and more valuable person the more of these different skills that you have. And when it comes to getting lucky on a certain thing, your odds of becoming lucky for any project that you're working on is when you have the most amount of those skills that line up for that opportunity as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And so, doing as many different things as you can, not just hyper focusing and saying, I'm just going to focus on audio, manipulating sound, and working with editing audio clips and stuff, and just hyper focusing on that for a couple decades. You're probably your potential for becoming lucky won't nearly be as good as if you were focusing on that, or maybe learning a second language, or actually getting presenting skills, or learning about persuasion and negotiating with people, maybe working with your hands, learning how to build stuff with your hands, and learning how the world around you works and is actually physically put together. All of these different things, the more things that you do, the more likely that you'll eventually luck out and be successful. So that's one of the powerful things that I've learned off of Scott Adams, regardless of his stances on COVID and politics. And
Well, I just had to laugh at that. I just thought that was
Yeah.
that was funny. He's not always like that. He does definitely have insightful things to say, and that's why people
Yeah.
watch him and respect him.
Yeah, that's one of them. So, and then there's another thing.
Well, I was
when
just
it
gonna
comes
before
to-
you get into the next thing.
Okay,
I
go
was
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it makes sense why they call things a skill set. They don't
Yes.
like. There's not a lot of people in the world that specialize in one particular thing. Like there are
Yeah.
people that do that, and they fall under a completely different camp, and a lot of times they struggle. They struggle, and they'll need other people to help them with their careers, because when
Some of those people are successful. Like if you look at
oh, I'm not saying they're not successful. I'm just saying like
yeah.
it's hard if you focus on one thing. Like I'm thinking about people who have like, or that are on the spectrum, right? Maybe they don't have
Yes.
good interpersonal skills, so they'll struggle with the job, getting a job and stuff like that. But once they find the right field, and they're able to apply the thing that they've hyper focused on, they become very successful at that, and
Yes.
in for good reason. But I think the average person, you would call it a skill set, because you have to have a number of things that you're good at, and then apply those, and then find the field that you would be able to apply those in a job. I mean, maybe I'm just reiterating what you were just saying before, but I'm trying to come at it from another angle.
You're processing it and getting.
Yeah.
No, that sounds right. So then the other thing when it comes to I come from a very design centric background, and for many years I was absolutely motivated by the idea of coming up with $1 million idea. Right, this thing where if I can just figure one thing out to improve the world, uh, and find some sort of means to monetize it, like find a venture capitalist or find a company that's willing to buy the idea and pay me royalties for it, something like that.
You want to
That'd
have
be
the
a
next
great
piano time.
way. Yeah, something. But then I
always loved
realized
that.
it took me way too long, but I eventually realized that these $1 million ideas, everybody has them.
Yeah.
Ideas are a dime a dozen, and I consider myself fairly smart and intelligent, and I think I've had lots of these ideas over the years. But what really separates people with ideas from people who are successful because of the ideas that they've had is they become heroes of the ideas that they have. They go forth and they manifest it into reality by taking on risks, taking on challenges to do it, and like struggling through before finally manifesting it into reality. And when it comes down to it, 9 times out of 10 they're going to fail, and
Yeah.
it's only the 1 in 10 that is actually successful. So then it comes to the point like, okay, have lots of ideas, chase lots of ideas, but know when to call it quits, and know
That's
when
a
you
difficult one.
absolutely
That's a difficult one.
know when you absolutely need to double down and say, hey, I'm going to stick out this hard point and try to see through where this leads out. And nobody's taught that, and I think there's a very, very small number of people in the world that can actually sit back at ideas that they've had and they passionately believe in and look at it through a neutral framework to say, hey, am I prepared to sacrifice X in order to get Y?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a difficult one. So like you nailed a couple of points there. One kind of reminded me of what I heard something about Steve Jobs recently. Is that one thing that he was really, really good at was communicating to his staff and his team when to just quit on a project, move on, take the resources, and get into another project. Because that's a tough one. Because there's so much, especially in creative projects and stuff. And I consider what Apple was doing at the time and innovative and doing all that stuff as quite a creative project, even though it was also science, right? To be able to just like go, okay, we're shutting that down, and like have no qualms about the emotional things that people are invested into something, because there's a lot, and it's really hard to let that stuff go and then just be able to move on. But as a leader, that is something you definitely
don't want to fall for the sunk cost fallacy.
Is that a particular fallacy?
Yeah, so sunk cost fallacy is essentially where you've invested into a project and you've invested a significant sum of time, money, resources into the project, and you're over budget, over time, and you have the option of continuing with the project in order to finish the project or to quit and take the loss. And it's a hard thing for many people to do. They go, okay, we're just gonna continue and get this done with. We won't be as successful. We might not even be profitable, but it'll be a learning experience, and we'll get it out of the way.
And what is it like? We're gonna try to mitigate some of the losses by finishing the project and making some of it back, or that kind of thing. Like just
trying to get back all of the value that you've sunk into it. And the problem with that thinking is not making a bad situation less bad. It's that if you stick and adhere to that, and the longer that you stick and adhere to that line of thinking, the worse of a situation you get into. All of a sudden, rather than being 20% over budget, you're 10 times over budget.
Yeah, I could see that happening quick. And then not only that, you have all these resources that are tied into that could be working on something else new that could turn into a thing sooner. I found too, like when working on projects, that long, big projects aren't always big winners. And sometimes you have long-term projects, and those are fun projects, and those are the kind of things that you like. This podcast, for example, like these podcasts, this is a long-term thing. This is what I want to do because I really enjoy it. And it's like, I've already got something that's successful, so let's give her with this, because even if it isn't, it's not really a sunk cost, because it's something that's more of a pet project than something that I enjoy, right?
Exactly.
But when it comes to like my videos in the morning, for example, if it takes me too much time in the morning to research a thing, I'll put it off. I'll stop researching that. I'll move on to the next thing, because I'm like, I'm not going to get to the end of it today, and then I won't have any videos out for the morning. I really look at it that way, and I'm really a stickler when it comes to vetting information, and I have gotten shit wrong, and I have had to make videos correcting it, but I try not to, the best I can, right? And a part of that though is mitigating like how much time, allocating as much time as I can spend on any given thing. But like and the same at work, right? I argue this one all the time with service writers. Like, would you rather me do 8 brake jobs today, or would you rather me do a clutch and a rear end? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I could get all of one or the other done, but what actually benefits us the most?
Yeah, what produces the most amount of value?
Yeah.
And you had a good analogy with the videos. Is who knows? You always will have that thing nagging at your head saying, you know what, if I find just that one link that says that has it all there, I just need to find it. and I'll find the source that I need to tell the video that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a percentage chance that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And have it being able to disconnect yourself enough to go, I have not found it yet. I'm not going to roll the dice on that. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah, move on. Or I've been
hard.
like, I've been in a situation where I've heard a thing and I wanted to just get one extra clip to add to a video, and then I found myself 20 minutes into just searching for a particular clip, and I'm like, well, it's just not going to be added in that video. It's just not going to be in it.
No.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just it's going to be without that. Moving on, getting on to the next story. And I love the fact that people tune in every morning to these videos and stuff. And I find a lot of pride in that. I actually feel bad. So Monday I didn't make any videos. That was the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't make any videos, and I actually genuinely felt bad about it. I'm like stewing. I'm like feeling the whole so bad. My body's aching. My face is dripping with just right. And I'm in bed. And my alarm's going off. And my alarm's going.
You have that added guilt.
Get up.
Yeah.
And the
both physically and mentally devastated.
Right? So first thing I do, I text my boss. I'm like, sorry, I ain't coming. And then I'm like, I'm not making videos either. It's just not happening. So I put out a community post. I gotta share this with you. I gotta share this with you. The people in the community are so awesome. Like, I'm not lying. Like, and every time I say it, I say like best community on YouTube. I'm not joking at all. I'm not joking at all, because holy cow, really cool people.
Speaking of which, community, have you hit the like button yet?
Yeah. usually when I'm live,
have you enjoyed this conversation? Do you want to share and spread the knowledge of how to become successful to your friends?
Yeah, I guess we could promo the streams, or so the promo the podcast. So if you go to the main page, you'll see on the main page there's videos, and then down below there's Did Something podcast, and all the podcasts will be found here. You can scroll through them all one by one, and they're episode numbered. So number 7, this is going to be number 8 that we're in right now. You'll look in the title just there, but that's how it goes. But anyway, let's pay attention to those every Thursday. Every Thursday, if you're watching this after the fact, every Thursday they go up as a premiere. You can hang out and chat in the live chat. We're normally there. I think as this one's being premiered, we're going to be talking with someone for the next week, so that's it's going to be tough, but we'll be in and out of that as much as we can.
I'll probably be monitoring chat and talking.
That's fair. Okay. Well, and the reason why I do this, and I just want to put this out there, the reason why I do this is so that I can concentrate on the conversation and not be divided with the chat. And I like on Fridays, I love hanging out with the people in the chat. But yeah, this is definitely something I want to more focus on. And again, it's like, if you like it, I hope you enjoy it. But this is something that we're doing because it's more of a pet project, an enjoyment thing. Anyway, here's the post that I put out there. I fell ill this weekend, caught one of those bugs that was going around. Unfortunately, I don't have the voice to record any videos this morning. My wife walked into the room. She's like, Are you going to work? I'm like, no. She's like, I guess you're not making videos, are you? I'm like, I don't think so. Hopefully I'll be back into the swing of things tomorrow morning, which I was partially. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I'll catch you all tomorrow. But like, the response from people was just so amazing. And because I was crook and I was sitting on a bed all day, I went through and I read people's comments, and people were just so genuine, amazing people, and just the things that they have to say are so nice. And I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to throw a big shout out to all those people. Now there's just hundreds of these comments.
A few hundred people.
So I'm really excited. Thank you everybody.
Just one last pitch here. If you're watching, comment down below whether you've shared the video. to somebody else.
Share the video to somebody else.
If you haven't, share it and then brag in front of everybody else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Or to any of your friends who don't know about the channel but are always talking about their favorite podcasters, share it out to them. I got to get this. Yep. We're gonna get this out onto on all the podcasting services. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And for audio only and stuff like that for Spotify.
I'll help you with that. I've done that previously. You have a good platform from which to share it from. When I did it, I got 0 engagement on anything other than YouTube.
Oh yeah, you need a springboard to get things going.
You need a springboard. You need some ability to promote it, because the podcasting services, hosting and whatnot, they do not promote shit.
No, they don't.
Bad.
Yeah, no, they don't. But yeah, it's one of those things when it comes to podcasts. I think a lot of them are word of mouth. Like, I'm thinking at one point there's going to be like a split between the audience. Like, there's going to be like people who just know the podcast, and then there will be people who just watch the YouTube channel. So, and I'm totally prepared for that. I like that. I like that. I think this is
we'll have to apologize anytime we have any images on screen. So sorry, podcast listeners.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is an image.
I always hear that.
Smooth, meat-looking brain.
I like that.
Looks like a chicken breast.
I hear that all the time from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they talk about. Another great podcast for anybody out there that's looking for more podcasts to listen to. That's for sure. But I think I've hit a number of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I mean,
this is a great conversation.
I think we could get into a bunch of other things, but like, let's just.
Oh, I'm sure we could, but we can also save it for another podcast.
Exactly.
Next time somebody dips out on us.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, I think we'll call it for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining in, checking us out, and listening to this, and tuning in every week. I mean, this is just, again, like I said, a new thing that we're doing just starting this year, and we're going to keep this project going as long as we can. I'm not sure how it's going to go while I'm in Japan, but we're going to try to, because I'll be gone for a month. We're going to try to make it. So check the times. We keep things consistent. Thursday, every Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, so that's 9 o'clock Eastern.
Yes.
Check the YouTube. There'll be the premiere of the podcast, and then it'll just be up as a video, so you can listen to it on YouTube Music, on your music listening app, or you just watch it on YouTube afterwards anytime you want. Joe is always with me for the podcast. If I have a guest, Joe is my guy who's gonna look up all the information. If we need to look up anything on the internet, give us insight. It's always good to have someone of high caliber intelligence behind you on these projects, and not only that, but to check you, because I can be wrong about stuff. It's good to have somebody to keep me in line.
For sure. You guys have a good night.
Awesome. Cheers.